It's just about time, I believe. So without further ado, I would be pleased to cede the floor to Dr. Palomares and for him to tell you all about himself. If you want to tell a few, say a few things about yourself and about using AI in call analysis.
Thank you very much, Loretta. And hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Jairo. As read, I put the phonetic pronunciation of my name there. I don't mind if people call me Jairo or other names in different languages, but this is the way I am called. I'm excited to be here, and I'm honored for this invitation from Loretta and Pete also. And I was afraid I'm going to share my my emotions when I got this invitation. I said, Loretta, I cannot do this. This is not my line of expertise. I'm going to share with you the way I did it, and it's not the correct way it should be done, I guess. I don't know. I am, and my background is very interesting as well. I'm a veterinarian from undergrad training in Colombia, and then I become an epidemiologist. I have a master's and a PhD in epidemiology. Very quantitative person from the beginning, and I have been doing sort of epidemiological research since I graduated. But now I am venturing into the qualitative analysis, holding Loretta's hands on this part and trying to keep up with all the new things I'm trying to learn. And now, since the recent viralization of AI tools, well, I feel interested on how can I use these new tools into making my life a little bit easier in things that I don't know how to do. So, so bear with me. This is not at all an expert talk about how to use and how to do a protocol on AI in qualitative analysis. It's just my experience as a novel person to do qualitative data analysis, and also a novel person using AI to assist in these methodologies. And that's it. My objective is to share my experience with you as an early career researcher. I'm not an expert in qualitative analysis. I think I had to be very clear with this, because I know the expectations of the audience is high on these topics always. But I'm not an expert in neither qualitative analysis, not in AI, though I have experience in both, but it's from a beginner's point of view. My key points today I will try to discuss what were my motivations behind venturing into AI and qualitative analysis, share my personal experiences and challenges and lessons learned, and provide insights to fellow novices and encourage further exploration. And my goal here is to hope this approach will inspire other people in my level or in other levels of the careers, and try to go into explore different new things and try to use it to improve the research. So a little bit about where I'm located. I am a researcher at the at CIDEIM. CIDEIM is a I'm not going to say the name in Spanish, but is a center of research. It's a research center located in Cali, Colombia, which is in the southeast of the country near the Pacific coast. We're located in a beautiful Intermountain Valley with a very tropical, warm weather all year long. We don't have winter. we have kind of a summer all year long, and it's beautiful. A lot of mosquitoes as well. CIDEIM in the past, CIDEIM it's been doing research for more than 40 years. And basically it used to do only research in basic microbiological and immunology for infectious diseases in Colombia, and particularly in the diseases that affect this region, with our vector-borne diseases and neglected tropical diseases, But now we have ventured into sexual transmitted diseases and tuberculosis as well, because those infections also affect a lot of the population in this region. And also doing that, we have been increasing the amount of work that we do in implementation research and social innovation and other diverse approaches. The research team of this specific project were composed by a diverse group of medical doctors and nurse practitioners, lab people, and myself. So it's Alexandra Cosio, Alvaro Martinez, Lady Ramirez, Sebastian Silva, Ruth Mabel Castillo, and myself are the research team in this project. So just to give you a little bit of geographical context, Colombia, perhaps not many of you know where Colombia is located, is at the north side of South America. And it's a middle-sized country. We're not a small country, we're not a large country. And in just the middle of the tropics. We are a tropical country with high mountain tropics and low tropics as well. So we have a variety of weathers and climates within a very diverse, geographically biodiverse country. And exactly, CIDEIM is located at the city of Cali. It's a mid-sized city of 2.4 million people in the southeast of the country. And also I'm presenting you this little port down to the corner, to the southeast corner of the country, near to the border with Ecuador, which is Tumaco, is the other town where we did some of the research I'm presenting today. And why we include Tumaco? Tumaco is a small city with lack of resources. It has a pretty interesting Afro-Colombian history and a lot of problems in regards to access to healthcare. And also a lot of infectious diseases from vector-borne diseases have been identified there. So CIDEIM has been there also these many years, working in tropical diseases and vector-borne diseases, but now we're trying to understand if we can do other type of research regarding sexually transmitted diseases. It's a port, and there is a lot of floating population, and the seeking of sex services is increasing in this type of places. So the problem of sexually transmitted diseases is also an important one. That is what we believe, because there are not many studies of prevalence or incidence of sexually transmitted diseases. But as I'm going to present, we want to know if this is a big problem. So that's why we developed this kind of approaches, this approach of this pilot project in this part of the country. So what I'm going to present here is part of the analysis of a pilot project to collect preliminary data in two main domains. But first of all, the clinical unit, the people, the research team that I showed you before, have been working in STIs for a few years now. The first approach with STI was a project regarding targets of molecular targets for vaccine development for syphilis. And then we'll start looking into clinics, HIV clinics, and the transgender population also was important in this project. And then we also conducted a project about prevalence of STI in this population, trying to get more sense or get a little bit of a measure on the magnitude of the problem in the population in Cali. The project about prevalence, but was very successful in recruitment, in the recruitment of representatives of this population using respondent-driven sampling. And we found a high prevalence and co-infections of STIs in the population. So the further steps after this, assessing the magnitude of the problem, was understanding more about the social interaction networks from key person do or to inform key person-driven interventions that could be addressing, that could address the problem of high prevalence and co-infections in the population. And also to understand, because during that project, we have reports, unofficial reports of the participants saying that they have been having problems accessing the healthcare, that they have been that they faced stigma and they faced also discrimination. So we think that it would be an interesting preliminary data collection qualitatively if we can understand a little bit more what those barriers are. Also, since we have since we have research team down there in Tumaco, we said, okay, if we are going to do this, why don't we replicate these kind of studies in Tumaco and assess the magnitude of the problem? But in Tumaco, we don't have any, or we didn't have any access to the population. We didn't have any contacts, any networks, any community leaders that we know. So we need to start doing this type of lobbying and networking in Tumaco to start doing this. So we use, or we take advantage of this pilot project to start doing that. So we didn't know the actual objective of the pilot was to understand all the experiences of the transgender population when accessing healthcare services, explore the structure and characteristics of the social interaction networks, assess, and also in Tumaco assess the feasibility of doing this type of research in that town. And we collect information in sampling strategy, how to access the population, sample collection preferences, and also trying to collect samples and trying to identify if there were some preliminary data on co-infections and prevalence of STIs in the population. This was a side of the qualitative data collection as well. So just specifically for the qualitative methods, we conducted semi-structured interviews with just two domains in mind. First, the social network. So we included questions regarding the composition, extension, group membership, importance of relationship, type of information spreads, means of communication. We also collected data on behaviors, sick behaviors, sick healthcare behaviors, and risky behaviors among the population. And also we collected information about experiences when looking to seek healthcare. So also the needs, also we collected information about the needs of healthcare services for the specific population, the experience barriers, the malpractices experience, if there were episodes of discrimination or stigma, among others. We expected to have a sample of of up to 15 representatives on each city, or until we obtain saturation of themes. That was the goal. And to analyze the data, we are employing, because this is an ongoing analysis, an ongoing project, we are using a radar. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a technique to rapidly reduce the amount of data and quotes. And then using the radar goes to thematic analysis, trying to find common themes and structure a little bit more the presentation of the potential presentation of results. I bet you're more into these techniques than I am, and you can explain it better. So specifically for the analytic approach, I say we, but mostly was what I was doing this, because in reduced resource settings, most of the things you have to do it by yourself because the amount of support is limited. And this was a pilot project with a very, very minor amount of funds, but we wanted to take advantage of the little funds to obtain this preliminary data. So that's why, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit later about the motivations on why I choose to use this approach instead of a more traditional approach. So after the interviews, there were recorded, the audios of the interview were recorded, and we then went through doing automatic transcription using artificial intelligence, and I'm going to explain a little bit more later what was the platform we used. We use also automatic initial coding assisted by AI. Then we export these codes. Unfortunately, I had planned to do a hands-on presentation of this process, but I didn't take into account that I wasn't in my office today. I was in my home, so I didn't install the software in this computer, so I cannot show it to you, unfortunately. Sorry. So then after the initial coding assisted by AI, we exported the codes with the text fragments to Excel spreadsheet. And after that, using the radar technique, we just start inductively looking at those codes in relation to responding the research questions, which were what are the experiences of the population when seeking healthcare services, and what are the characteristics and structure of the social interaction networks of these populations. We, with this, after taking out the information that is redundant or not relevant to the research question, where the quotes are collapsed into categories, or the codes are collapsed into categories, and then the teams will be identified. This is still ongoing, and we haven't reached that stage of the analysis yet. But I can show you some preliminary findings. From doing the analysis, I have a little bit of a sense of what is going on, the situation of what is going on with this population in the domains that we are exploring. So in Cali, and we can have a contrast of the experiences, and there is a contrast. There is differences in the two populations when exploring the same domains. So when experiencing healthcare, when seeking healthcare in Cali, we found that the transgender women have faced discrimination mainly from staff in the front desk, and those in particular, those staff can be characterized as not educated population, or not educated in healthcare, but mostly in customer care, something along those lines. And they have found that they can have these experiences of discrimination more with people that are not healthcare professionals, but with healthcare professionals, they don't have a problem, and they didn't report a lot of bad experiences with the healthcare, specifically with health professionals. Most of the transgender women just said, I'm used to it, I don't mind it, I just know that people don't understand our population yet, and this is a process that is improving in the population, that but still many many cultural barriers to break, but they are used to it, is what we understand from the reports, is that they are used to this and they don't get affected by these comments or attitudes. Also, another finding is that the reported barriers are very similar to the reported barriers of the general populations that we have found in other studies. In Tumaco, there are reports of bad experiences at all levels of the provider services. Particularly, one of the most reported and impactful experience that they report is that when they have seek diagnostic services and some of their mates or their friends have been diagnosed, all the town knows about the diagnostic test for some reason. So it's a small town still. I mean, it still has a few 100,000 people, but what they see is that people that work in the hospital also are members of the community, and there is breach of confidentiality of diagnostic test results, resulting, and this was one story that resulted in an attack of one of the transgender women by someone else because she was diagnosed with HIV, and this resulting in a violent episode. Also, one thing that we notice is that there is, because of this episode, there is an aggressive activism. The community leaders are very sensitive and are very aggressive when defending their rights. And this have caused some conflict between different sectors of the healthcare, including the providers. So, and there is some lawsuits going on, things like that. So, and we think that this is against worsening in the gap between the client and provider, because now no one in the at least the ones that we interview, no one in the population wants to go to a hospital to get diagnosis. They say, no, I'm not gonna go there. I'm just rather live without knowing if I'm have any of these diseases. And this is, well, you can imagine the impact that this lack of diagnosis has in this population. In terms of the social network, in Cali is interesting because they are either in and members of community organizations, and they are very happy in it. They say they help them a lot. They got meetings, gatherings, they provide education, and there is others, kind of the half of the other people of their group, that say, I don't go there, those people are ugly, they don't treat me well, I don't like them, and they are only looking for their own profit in these organizations. They are only looking for their own personal benefits and not helping anyone. So we have two completely contrasting views in terms of the social network in this population. So that's something that we have found preliminary. I don't have anything about bad experiences. Well, besides that they cope well with the experiences, and besides that they don't feel like it's a big problem or a big deal, the access to healthcare in Cali. Now I'm going to try to show you a little bit about the learnings and the experience and the challenges that I faced, and perhaps with this I can show you what to do and what not to do if you want to try these tools in your research. So part of the challenges is my lack of the one of my biggest challenges was the number. I was not familiar with AI tools before ChatGPT. Never used them, never even researched about it because I didn't know. With the search of this, with the emergence of ChatGPT and then the rest that follow it, after that, well, I got interested and I tried to think about how this would help my workflow in when I have too many things to do, I need to be more efficient. So I start using it for statistical analysis for other projects and for the more quantitative part. So if I need to code or do some statistical analysis, I use artificial intelligence to help me write a code that I can use in the statistical software right away. So I think, okay, this is easy. Can I do it? Can I do it for a different type of analysis? So I start exploring. And I found that there were a lot of artificial intelligence tools that were used, or not a lot, but quite a bunch. And it's difficult to choose if you don't know or where to start from. The other was my limited experience in qualitative data analysis. I only have written one article with the help of Loretta. My previous experience with qualitative data analysis was very limited. So also I think that's a challenge. Doing research in low resource settings is also a challenge, as I tell you. You can find yourself doing a lot of administrative things by yourself because there is not enough people to do things here, so it's challenging. You get used to it and just do what the most, and you try to extract the most of it as well. And also the data collection in hidden populations. I mean, this is a challenge for all the, for collecting data for people that you don't know and people that are afraid of the health system, people that have bad experiences previously. So you have to go and present yourself as not part of the health system, but trying to say, okay, I am a health professional, but not one of those that are in the hospital. We are trying to understand your problems and trying to help you. And that was difficult, but I think we made a good progress in Tumaco at least. What are my motivations? I like doing interviews. I love listening to people's experiences. I love to understand their problems and their realities. And that's why I am in love with qualitative data analysis. I like using technology, as Loretta told you before. I like to explore new things, and not only in research. In my daily life, I like to download apps just to test them out, and well, a lot of things that are not related to research. I like to look into them. I don't mind making mistakes. That's also something that helped me be risky on my methods, and with this, I'm not saying that you should. I mean, what I'm not trying to say is that I'm not careful with the data analysis. I'm careful with the data analysis. I try to do robust data analysis. But if I make mistakes, okay, it's not a big deal. I try to learn from those mistakes and keep going. And I like learning new things also. That's another motivation that I have. So I'm not an expert on artificial intelligence, but I have done my homework and trying to understand. When I'm trying to use a new technology, I like to understand how it works because it helped me use it better. So all the technology that is around qualitative data analysis uses this kind of approaches, which is natural language processing, which is just a branch of artificial intelligence science that focuses on interaction between computers and human languages. There are two kinds of tools, or you can separate them, these natural language processing tools based on two approaches. Either you set a set of rules, of algorithms or questions that limit the processing, or you allow the machine to learn by itself without any limitations. Both have their advantages and disadvantages, and is all related to the accuracy of the results. The rule-based are, I mean, the advantages is that would result in a more accurate representation of the data, but won't explore further than the limitations you set or the programming you set. And the machine learning can be imprecise, but can explore further, can give you things that you didn't expect, and that sometimes is good. I specifically use large language models for helping me with decoding, and this was using the AI features on Atlas TI, basically. The large language models, is a more machine learning model of NLP, and it uses large amount of text available on the internet to train the robot to analyze text massively. The premise of the large language models is that all human language is completely predictable and modelable mathematically. So it's a huge amount of models of terms and variables that is included into these models, and then the model can predict the language and can predict the text structure. I use them for automatic transcription using MS Teams. I just recorded the interviews using Microsoft Teams in the Office 365 feature or platform or whatever software tools, and use the automatic transcription that is embedded into the meetings software. And then with the transcript, I am trying to decide, in this moment, I'm trying to decide if I'm gonna check further this transcript for accuracy, because I have used the raw data from the automatic transcription into AI, into using the coding, automatic coding, and then I'm going to try to use a more refined version of those transcriptions into the same tool and see what are the differences. So I'm still experimenting, as you can see. And I use it also, this AI and the large language models to do summary of transcripts. And I feel that this is the most useful tool so far for me. I have summaries of one paragraph of each transcript. And when I forgot the participant name and say, okay, what was this meeting about? And then I check the summary and I remember, okay, this meeting was about specifically this topic, and this was, and it will help me, I think, it would help me, I think, to define themes as well, those summaries, or to identify themes. Other uses that I want still to explore are that these tools can be used to finding patterns in the text, to do sentiment analysis, do speech tagging, which I don't understand yet what that means, and try to use it for extracting information automatically. But it is still to explore in my journey of using AI in qualitative data analysis. So the advantages for the transcription, of course, is just using one platform, and just after finishing the interview, I can click transcript this and download a Word document or a transcript document of any sort and put it right away into STI. That was minutes. One interview, and that's without, of course, reviewing the text, just using the raw data, which I think can be used and I'm gonna tell you this about the disadvantages. If the quality of the audio is good and the speech skills of the interviewer, of the participant is good, and he or she can express herself or himself adequately, the text is very good. It has problems with accents. It has problems with lack quality of audio. If there is background noise, all those things can affect the quality of the transcript, and then it will require a more refined revision after that. Let me see. I have some notes here about that. Also, of course, what is the main advantage that I was looking for is reducing time that because I don't have any or resource to pay people to transcribe this for me, or I don't have time to do the transcription myself. So that was my motivation, is use something quickly and then try to understand if that transcription can be useful right away to do data analysis. Okay. And I also use the automatic coding, save me a lot of time. 8-hour transcript were coded in about 20 minutes. The code consistency was good. I tried several times with similar results on main cons. I mean, you can repeat this task using different settings. It has like sliders that you can change. And mainly the main codes, the main 4 or 5, or the main top 10 codes were very similar in the repetitions, in the replicates. And in STI, it's just a matter, I'm sorry, I don't have an example here, but it's a matter of importing your document and go to the tab of data analysis and coding, and then click AI coding. And they will say, okay, this is working. It could not take for you 7 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And then you review the codes and click apply. And then you have your list of codes right away. So it was very, very easy to understand. The disadvantages of the automatic coding is that it codes every single sentence. Even the sentence of the question is asked by the interviewer. So it coded, it says something about it. And so it codes with no context, with no meaning. It doesn't understand the tone. It doesn't understand sarcasms or cultural references. So in a very diverse context, might be difficult to see what is useful and what is not. But I think is useful. It's not driven by the research questions because it's just open coding, so it's just codes everything perhaps within the capabilities of any AI without any focus. And we actually don't know, and nobody that is not involved in the development of these tools know actually how this process coding works. What is how it uses the text to analyze and how it provides names for the codes. It's actually unknown. So it's a black box. My overall experience is just I start coding one at a time and see if it changes something that it's better. At this point, it's better to code everything because it takes all the text in all the transcripts and provide codes for everything. So I think coding at the end of collecting all the data is the best approach that I found. Also, I use ChatGPT and other available tools to cross-validate and see if I can find similar results, which I did. So I don't know if this is good or bad because all of them are perhaps based in the same language model. So it's obviously the results expected is that you can obtain the same results in different tools. What is still to learn? I need to, and I don't know if code separate, if I should separate groups with different participants' backgrounds with different cultures, or if I should separate the coding for different research questions. So if I can split the transcripts in the moments of the interview when the participant was speaking about their social network, or if they were speaking about their experiences with the providers, if I should separate those and coding separately, I'm going to explore that and see what I obtain from that. So in conclusion, and to finish up, AI tools can provide very initial insights in seconds, but the human knowledge and insights are critical for the data analysis. Of course, it can, in my case, it sped up the analysis, which I think would take months of transcription and coding from an experienced person, which I'm not. Took only minutes or maybe hours of work. So it's helpful, but but it doesn't replace the researchers, of course. AI can be used for informal coding, for summarize large portions of data, perhaps for brainstorming, and give you some hints of how to approach it. Sorry. It's also free of drift, so it codes this similarly every time, so it can help you avoid drifting. Maybe it can help you formulate research questions or interview guidelines in the future. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jairo. That was really quite informative. I don't know if anybody has questions, but there we go. Emily, take it away.
Thank you so much for this great presentation. I have two questions. So you said because of the way AI works, at least at this moment, that the coding is not related to the research question. And I'm wondering how you as the researcher mediated that. with the codes that you got back from your program. And I'm just thinking, like, everything I've been trained in qualitative methods has told me to stay very close to my research question at all times. So I'm wondering how you know, bring it back. And number two,
Yes.
something I'm asked about all the time as working on projects, and people really want to use this technology, but about privacy concerns and working with very vulnerable populations, and thinking of how AI uploads, depending on the program you use, the information to large language models. And I know a lot of like IRBs and other ethical groups, like they really curtail the use of it at this point. So I'm wondering how, especially with the people you're working with, they have a lot of vulnerability. So if you've thought about that.
Of course. But I'm going to answer the first question first, is how I return back to my research question focus after doing the coding. Well, that's it. It's just, I have, like, I reversed kind of the approach, and instead of caring about the research question early on, I start caring about after the extracting all the codes and quotes accompanying the codes, and try to think about the research question and this, and looking for codes that are related to my research questions. So one of the research question was, what are the experiences of these people when seeking provider? So if there is a code called provider or called attitudes or called stigma, so I went down to that and read the quotes and say, yes, this relates to my research question, so I'm going to keep this. And then if not, I'm going to remove this. So and that's part of the rapid analysis, is just quickly discarding chunks of quotes that doesn't relate with your research question. So you discard them, and then that's how I return back to the research question. And about the ethical considerations, yes, this is a big topic in many of the AI talks, as you mentioned. And in Atlas TI, we are covered, I think, because AI promises us that they don't share this information with anyone. And I also have seen that is problematic, because then you cannot drive the coding based on your research question. Instead, I have done examples using this data without identifiers in ChatGPT. In ChatGPT, you can help the machine to answer focusing on one topic. So you prompt it, you said, trying to understand the experiences of this person with, and give me some initial coding. And I paste a chunk of the text, and it's better. It's better at it. It provides better coding, better information, and better insights. But the problem is, yes, we don't know what happened with that data. So I will suggest not to use ChatGPT in general if you're to share, because we don't know what happened with that data.
Well, I have a question, kind of follow on to Emily's question about if you were to, so normally what we do in some of the studies that I have, where we're conducting the interviews remotely, is we take that automatic transcript and we take the time up front to, first of all, proofread, collapse, and de-identify the transcript before loading it into anything, be it Atlas or NVivo or anybody like that, any of the programs like that. So that would be a possibility, but I don't then know if it can see that Jairo's inputting this from Colombia and can figure out, I still don't know if it is adequate confidentiality, maintaining of confidentiality when you go to something like ChatGPT.
Yeah, the ethics committee, just complementing on that before giving the word to another person. The ethics committee won't approve it. That's the problem, because there is many unknowns. So that's why we cannot use it.
Yeah. Yeah, Heidi has a question. I don't know if it's the same one that you put in your in the chat, but take it away, Heidi.
Thank you. Yeah, it is the one in the chat, which was you talked about how you can have the model like be open or give it parameters. And if I understood correctly, you did run one with parameters, and I was wondering if you could share what parameters you gave it.
Just is one slider. Yeah,
Oh,
unfortunately,
okay.
there are not many things to do in Atlas TI to parameterize things, coding, automatic coding. It's just you, I don't know if I can share perhaps a YouTube video or something. I can share the link. Let me find it. I can share you a link of where Atlas TI have a YouTube channel, and they provide all the
Okay.
3-minute video of how to use it. But there is a slider after you code the first, after you click the coding, and then it goes around and around coding without knowing what is going on. And they give you a list of codes and there is a slider that you say the amount of coding groups or groups that you can move that slider up or down to dial how many codes you end up at the end. I mean, not the codes, the grouping, because it gives you a little bit of grouping of codes at the end. And that's the only thing that you can do in Atlas TI, at least, that I know.
I had another question kind of related about the Atlas TI. Are you able to select, I didn't quite understand, are you able to select for, are they using NLP or LLM? No.
Well, and LLM are parts of NLP.
Okay.
So just it's one of their approaches or models that they use. And the AI in Atlas TI is developed by OpenAI company, which is the owner of ChatGPT. So they use LLM, large language model, for that.
Thank you. So basically, the only thing that you can control is the number of codes or groupings of codes, but it's not a matter of choosing one method or another, or being able to adjust too much the parameters. I will also tell you, thanks to, big shout out to Carolina, who's on this session. I talked to her earlier in the week, and since here at Yale we have in vivo, she has done some checking out of doing, if I understood correctly, Carolina, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you can do the same thing of using AI to generate codes. Am I right on that, Carolina?
Yes, you are correct. So I have a data set where we collected just some short responses, and I ran a general autocode feature in vivo, and it did give me a nice summary of the most frequently used themes. But I agree with Jairo that it's difficult to set parameters, and maybe doing some preliminary or at least organizing by question and running the autocode through each individual question might give you a more succinct list than running autocode on the entire data set at once. So there are some techniques that I'm still learning and I'm curious about exploring, but it's a pretty neat tool and a good way to explore the data.
Thank you, Carolina. And I would love to invite you to give us a presentation on what you've learned from in vivo, particularly since Yale is supporting in vivo and not as supportive of Atlas. But I think that the major message is it's not going to, you still are an important part of the qualitative data analysis, that in the last analysis, it's the researchers that are the ones that really need to be at the helm, and not just pushing a button and relying on the qualitative data program. You know, so it's still up to you as a researcher to make sense of what's being spit out at you. I think it helps with organization for sure. Did anybody ever try, I had another question about, did anybody try to delete, and would it be worth it to delete the interviewer questions? The only reason I ask this is in the long ago and far away, when we were still calculating kappas, we had to take out the interviewer comments to be able to get a better understanding of what proportion of the interview, of what the respondent was saying was devoted to this code or coded by this person versus coded by that person. So we needed to get rid of the interviewer questions. Any thoughts from anybody? I think I have an answer, but I would love to hear from others.
I think since the coding is not contextual, the automatic coding is not contextual and it codes everything, I think it's worth to take out the interviewer comments.
Anybody else with any thoughts on that? Whether it would be good to take out, remove the interviewer comments or not?
But we're talking just we're talking just for coding, for automatic coding.
Yeah, Loretta, I can't speak from experience, but I think it makes sense, right? And just since AI programs really rely on the data that's fed into them to help to inform, you know, the summarizations and conclusions they make coming out. I think that makes sense. For the same reason you did it back in the day, right? To get a more accurate kappa when you're calculating those. But I don't know if there's more in the literature about it.
Well, that's interesting, Tom. Thanks. Because I would say the opposite. That from what I understand, if I'm correctly understanding, the program as it's going through the interview is taking some of the content that precedes to contextualize what follows. And if you're omitting those parts in between, granted, it's coding the interviewer's comments as well. But if you're taking that out, does that decrease the power for the program to interpret what the respondent is saying?
I don't know, but since what I've seen in the Atlas CI is that the coding is pretty uncontextualized. So it codes just the chunk based on what it understands about it.
It doesn't relate this chunk to this chunk.
We don't know, but I feel it doesn't, because when I put it in ChatGPT, which is more of an open text analysis or text synthesis software with a more free model, it does. So in ChatGPT, it does take the context of the whole text to help, but I don't think it's doing the same in Atlas TI.
In Atlas TI or in NVivo. I want to give it, we're getting up to almost the top of the hour. I want to apologize to Daniel. And at the same time, in the chat room, there is an announcement from Daniel about the photo voice workshop that's coming up here at Yale in 2 or 3 weeks. And he has put in the link. Anybody is welcome to participate and well worth. I know we've had some stuff on photo voice, but this is an opportunity for a more in-depth look at photo voice. Well, thank you. I would hope that as Jairo explores the other capabilities of the AI and the different other things that you thought it could possibly do, you'll come back and talk to us about it. And Carolina, if you would talk to us about it. I think these are good shortcuts, particularly for maybe inductive coding. I'm not so sure about if you've got some model that you're working with and you're much more deductive, then perhaps it's more limited in what it can do, because God knows if the program would come up with the same constructs as you've got in whatever model you're using. So that would be my last kind of opinion, but I think it's well worth looking into and using it as another way to streamline, but not exclude or abdicate to the qualitative software program.
Thank you very much.
And I wish everybody, a pleasant weekend. It's great to see some of you that I haven't seen in a long time. And next month, not sure what we're going to have, but we'll be here next month. Yuka will be doing some stuff on reflective practice tools for researchers and participants. Take care, everyone. Good to